So I grew up in a foodie family. My mother loved to cook. There were lots of kids and lots of people around. It seemed like there was always somebody joining us for lunch or for dinner at the last minute. So there's usually a big crowd of folks around for the two meals of the day, for sure, lunch and dinner. And my mother had to get pretty creative from time to time, whether it was like baked spaghetti or omelets any time of day or Russian cabbage rolls with gravy, which smelled horrible but tasted wonderful. She was always about making great food. And I'm kind of surprised that all of us didn't end up in my family shaped a bit differently because her love language was definitely food. If we didn't like a dish that she made, she kind of felt like we didn't like her. Well, she was a great cook most of the time. There were a couple of epic fails. She had a dish that she called Spanish rice. It was sketchy. There was nothing Spanish about it, but there was definitely rice. And I think all she did was take some cheap rice, whatever she could find, and add ketchup to it. I think she may have added an exotic spice like pepper. I don't know. Ugh, it was awful. Whenever it was Spanish rice night, we kind of lost our appetite. One morning, in celebration of something that I've kind of forgotten about what it was by now years ago, she made flaming pineapple crepes for a Saturday morning breakfast for all of us. Like I said, I don't remember what she was celebrating, but I do remember what it all looked like. We came into the kitchen dining room area, and she was making these wonderful crepes. And she had got a couple of pineapples and cut the tops off, hollowed them out of their pineapple, and turned it into some kind of a compost kind of thing. Or compote, I guess is the right word. Compost is probably where it ended up later. And I don't know, she mixed a bunch of stuff with it, and then she had the crepes on the side. And she brought the two pineapples to the table with all the crepe fixings sitting around it and set them on fire. Well, apparently, we're all high school and junior high kids, right? And a bunch of us sitting around, and she had to have added alcohol to it to catch it on fire. And it really caught on fire. Both of these flaming pineapples with flames going this high. We were just amazed, and she was so pleased. And she had this big, beautiful morning kind of robe on that she was wearing. It was very flowing and long flowing arms, and you get the idea. The arm on one of the robes caught on fire, and the smell of the robe catching on fire and everyone scampering to put it out and kind of ruined the breakfast. She was quite adventuresome as a cook. I remember on April Fool's Day, every year she would do something. She one year put cardboard in our sandwiches. Instead of a ham sandwich, it was a cardboard and mayonnaise sandwich. My older brother didn't even notice, and we would come home from school at the end of one of her April's Fool's Day jokes, this one in particular, and she'd be excited to find out what happened. And of course, one bite, and I knew it was cardboard. My siblings, one bite, they all knew it was cardboard, except for my older brother, who apparently wasn't paying much attention and ate the entire sandwich. And so when Mom said, well, what'd you think? What'd you think? He said, mine was fine. Well, she never told him until years later that he had actually eaten a cardboard sandwich. I'm not sure if that says anything about his attention span or about her cooking. Well, food was her thing, and she would often say, you know, you are what you eat. So I was a little bit of a smart ass back then. I still am today. And I recall saying back to her at one point, well, I don't want to be a Brussels sprout when I push the Brussels sprouts away from me. Thank you very much. Ugh, Brussels sprouts, to this day, they're horrible. Anytime I say that to people, they say, well, you just haven't had them cooked correctly. So I finally discovered the best recipe for Brussels sprouts. I'll share it with you here very quickly. You take the Brussels sprouts and steam them till they're just partly steamed, and cut them in half, and then quick fry them in a little bit of olive oil and garlic and salt. And then you put them on the plate and put some seasoning on the top of it, and maybe slice up a few nuts or something to put on top of it. A little bit of bacon crumbles like that. This is the best way to make them. Don't forget this last step. Then you put them on a plate and walk over to the garbage and scrape them into the garbage and throw the plate away. That's the best recipe. Don't forget those last two steps. Brussels sprouts. Anyway, you are what you eat. She used to say that all the time. Such fond memories. A little while back, I learned another take on that phrase. You are what eats you. In fact, at the start of a phone conversation a while back with a friend named Rebecca, She had just reported when we hopped on the phone together that she had just come back from a stress-eating lunch. I chuckled and asked her what she meant by that. She said, well, I ate way too much at lunch because I was really stressed out. So I said to her, well, you kind of are what eats you. Well, she giggled with me, but I didn't let it go. What's eating you? I asked her. And that question led into a fun, good, deep conversation about some particularly stressful things that she was dealing with unsuccessfully, I might add, as a leader of her very intense company. Well, we had a great conversation. I could hear her at the beginning of the conversation chewing over the phone, crackers or something like that in the background. And then after a few minutes into the conversation, it went quiet. I think she was still eating, but she probably switched over to something quiet like York peppermint patties. So let me ask you that same question. If you were right here with me, sitting across from this table with me and sharing a bourbon, I'd ask you the same question. What's eating you? As you stress eat an entire bag of peanut M&Ms, what's eating you? Or a whole bag of the Halloween-sized, fun-sized Snickers, or maybe all of the Tim's Cascade chips that are out there. Maybe all of the Oreos. What's eating you? Remember, leadership's hard. No one has to tell you that. But sometimes we make it harder than it needs to be. One of the ways we do that is by ignoring the very real fact that our work can be quite stressful. Here's a quick reminder about this. First, stress is fear. You remember that. Stress doesn't create fear. It is fear. Whenever someone says they're stressed, take the word stress out and put the word fear in. And they're saying, I'm afraid. Second idea here to remind you, remember we are feeling beings that think, not thinking beings that feel. That means we feel faster than we think. Here's the third quick reminder idea. These feelings, these sensations that we're having in our body when we are afraid are information. That's all they are. They're information. Remember this fourth simple reminder that we have a threat-reward brain, always perceiving what's around us quickly, although not accurately, and putting it into two buckets. It's either a threat or a reward. And here's the last reminder idea. You know this already, right? That set of sensations you're feeling in your body before you have words for them that eventually end up being called that sloppy term stress, right? That set of sensations you're feeling means you're afraid. Okay, you got that now. And we've learned that if we don't address those feelings as fear in appropriate ways, that set of feelings will begin to eat us. We'll focus on it. We will worry about it, which is fear. Worry is fear. It's just turned down on simmer. We'll try to distract ourselves from the feelings of fear without actually getting precise about what's creating the fear. And we will be unsuccessful at it, and it will eat us. So, I recognize that this is fear, this feeling that I'm having. This is fear. Now what do I do? Well, one, say it to yourself. Oh, that's fear. I'm feeling fear. Two, answer honestly. What am I afraid of? Three, answer this question. Okay, what can I do about it right now? Four, answer this question. Well, what can I do about it later? That's at the end of the day or tomorrow or maybe one day after that. Five, do it. Take action now. Nobody ever sat still and thought their way out of fear. You've got to move. Movement is medicine. You know what to do now. You answered the question above. What is that one thing I could do right now? It's very small usually, but it has to involve movement. Here's the sixth idea. Then schedule the other stuff. Put it on your calendar. Call that person tomorrow at 9 a.m. Put it on your calendar. Go and make this decision. Say no to that. Put the later step that you mentioned up above on your calendar. So, back to Rebecca. By the end of our conversation, she had accomplished at least two things. One, as soon as she identified her fear and made her plan and took the first small step in that plan, the fear began to subside. And it changed in just a few minutes from this paralyzing force that made her want to go eat whatever she could into an empowering force in just a little bit of time. Second thing, I think she succumbed to a sugar rush and headed into a nap booth. Remember, you are what you eat, but you're also what eats you. By the way, I highly recommend that you avoid Brussels sprouts at all cost. If you're a fan of Brussels sprouts, the amazing YouTube algorithm will likely hide this video from you. Just saying, hey, small change, big difference, right away, here's to you.